Hey ratbags, it's Jade. Today I'm giving you the ultimate guide to smelting, the importance of getting copper and iron bars, as you're going to need it to upgrade your village squares in the desert and the frostlands, as well as get the best kinds of charms, weapons and gear, including the grapple, and a little bit about the oven and the importance of unlocking this at pretty much the same time as the smelter. So do leave a like if you find this useful, a really in-depth guide. Let's go smelting, everything you need to know and what it unlocks. So the smelter needs 15 bright cores, 35 obsidian slabs and 3 blast cores. All of these resources are found in the lava caves in the desert. Step 1, a rare pickaxe, which you're going to need from chopping cactuses down to convert the flex wood into rods, and you're going to need sand claws from killing the desert wolves that you'll find, or sometimes even at the coast at night. So lava caves come in 2 varieties. Some won't have any enemies in, but you will find obsidian and maybe some copper nodes. Others will have lots of enemies and the lava, and they're the ones we want. Lava caves always have this dust and sand on top of them, and they're quite jagged in terms of rocks or caves compared to some of the other rock formations you might see in the desert. Once you get in, you're going to be extremely hot, so make sure you obviously bring some of the snowberry juice, and you probably will need 1 or maybe even 2 of the charms that help protect against the heat. Now you're not going to have the grapple straight away because obviously you haven't got any of the copper bars which you need to make it so far. But once you do, this is the biggest priority to make because it makes life so much easier, especially when you're in these caves. It really helps you get across the lava and avoid enemies. You want to run around and explore quickly. Don't try and gather every single resource. Specifically, you're looking more for things like rubies and certainly the bright core. These places are very dangerous, and if you don't necessarily deal with the skeletons, they will kind of all try and gang up on you. So you might want to try taking them out. Obviously they throw a lot of dynamite. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage to themselves, but it does huge amounts of damage to you. You will come across some of the sand rollers as well as the lava rollers in here. And the lava rollers especially we need to kill, or hopefully they explode so we can get the blast cores. That's what they drop. Once you've got the smelter, you will be able to unlock the oven, and I think that these 2 items really go hand in hand, and I was going to do a guide including both of them, but I decided to keep it separate as it was a bit better and shorter. But certainly if you're going to carry on exploring these caves, having the oven ready gives you better foods and makes life a little bit easier. So your shopping list, if you can, is to get 53 bright core. That would be enough to craft the oven as well as obviously get the smelter unlocked. You also need that many bright core to go ahead and make your first copper bars, because the oven does require copper bars to make and craft it. So you're going to need 15 copper to go ahead and make into copper bars once you've got your smelter up and running. 70 obsidian to be converted into obsidian slabs, and 3 of the blast cores that, like I said, you get from the lava rollers. You always get a blast core whether or not they explode or you defeat them yourself. Also, don't pass up on chests. Sometimes they'll have some of the raw resources you need, like actual copper or obsidian inside them. So the lava you can actually jump on with it not killing you instantly. It will take a fair amount of health, so you need to make sure you've got plenty of foods or at least a lot of the charms so you can survive. But yeah, it is doable. A smart person will use a bridge or the grapple, but I quite like the idea of just bouncing across the lava. It does do damage to enemies as well, and the skeletons will often fall into the lava and take a lot of damage. Last thing to mention is rubies. You need a ton of these to go ahead and upgrade your village square, and that's why they're a priority as well. So that's the order. Rubies, make sure you get enough of the bright core to craft the stations I just mentioned, and then go ahead and fill your boots up with obsidian, copper, and never pass up the opportunity to take on one of the lava rollers. So once you're home, you converted your obsidian into obsidian slabs, so 35 of them, 3 blast cores, and yes, 15 of the bright cores. So making your copper bars, 1 piece of copper, 2 bright cores, like I said, 2-to-1 ratio. It can take quite a while, and as soon as you have got a metal smelter up and running, see if you can get some of your helpers to go ahead and basically gather some of the resources or refine it. Although there is a bug at the moment which is meaning they are taking incredibly long time, so maybe wait till that has been fixed. Now iron is definitely a lot harder to get hold of, but with a lot of the copper that you've just now gotten, you should be able to go ahead and craft with other resources some more charms that will give you protection in the cold, and hopefully by now you've got lots of chilies and maybe making spicy burgers. The ice caves are pretty similar, that'll have a light dusting of snow on top of them and they're pretty jagged and rounded. You really want to get the inner fire charm. You can see that also costs 8 bright cores, 3 more blast cores and 5 of cut rubies. So you want to be aiming for this on your second or maybe third trip to a lava cave if you manage to only find a small one, or if there's a large one you've got to use a few pickaxes. Now you've got copper as well, make sure you go ahead and get that grappler. You are going to need the epic pickaxe, and for this you're going to need 8 obsidian slabs, but you're also going to need 5 of the frostpine rods, which you can only get by getting yourself an epic axe, and for that you are going to need to make that out of some of the items that you got from the desert. So, inner fire charm, the forest axe epic version and a grapple are the 3 main things that you want to be crafting before you venture off into the snow. You can make a small trip just to the outside edges to pick up the frostpine, then come back and make your pickaxe. I do recommend putting durability as well essences on these epic weapons, they will last a long time this way. So the Frostland caves, you can see the iron, it's pretty dark and it's got this orange current running through it. This is going to give you your iron. Again, it's probably the most common thing that you'll find in these caves. Now I have done a guide to the Frostlands caves, so I'm not going to focus too much on what's inside, but obviously there are tough enemies including these skeleton wolves, and they can take 6 of your hearts away in one hit if you haven't got the right kinds of charms and healing items. And yes, this is also where you get sapphires, but don't really need them right now. Obviously they're going to come in handy for later when it's looking to go ahead and get even better charms and essences. So once you've got the iron home, yes, you're going to have to combine it with even more bright core to go ahead and get the iron bars. Copper bars will help you get more of the rare tools like the rare shovel, and obviously the epic versions will rely on iron. Don't ever get any of these shovels, they rarely give you any decent loot so far. They only give you lots of extra kinds of dirt, maybe a few extra food items unless you've got the good luck charm or essence. Instead use the iron that you might have just got to get yourself a epic recurve crossbow. If you put some of the damage essences on these, it can really rip apart lots of enemies, and obviously long swords as well, either the copper one for the rare or the iron bars. Again, this should be the priority once you've got enough of these materials. Personally, I don't think it's worth getting the rare night shield, especially when things are limited. You might as well wait and see if you can get the epic one eventually, but for sure you definitely want to focus on some of these charms. A lot of them do use just the rare resources that you get from the desert. Again, more blast cores needed for the inner fire charm, but the regeneration charm rare one needs copper bars to make. It only replenishes about a quarter of your heart every few seconds, but it's still relatively good and can actually counteract against the cold debuff, especially if you haven't got a lot of the inner fire charms. And the epic health charm, which really gives you a massive boost in health and defense, that also needs a lot of iron bars too. The resilience charm also needs 5 iron bars, but you're going to need malachite slabs for this, which you'll find on top of the mountains outside in the Frostlands. We'll probably do a smaller video talking about foods, but basically you want to unlock this so you can get meat pies. They give the second most health overall, and they're a lot cheaper and quicker and easier to make than any of the other foods. If you've got the resources, great, make any of the other stuff, although bread is still kind of weak sauce, definitely save your flour for meat pies in my opinion. You don't use as much flour or as eggs as some of the other stuff, and yeah, you don't have to rely on random drops like you can with cheese, as that only gets given from certain elite enemies. With the right combination of charms and food, you can get your hearts above 20 up to 28, even if some of them are temporary, to really help you against some of the elite mobs. One quick thing is to go through the village upgrades. Now some of the recipes slightly change depending on what biome you're in, but as we're in the desert right now trying to unlock all the stone stuff, don't go making lots of cut rubies straight away. You're going to need some of that rough rubies to go ahead and upgrade your villages. You need 10 to go ahead and get the next upgrade to level 8. Then to get to level 9, this is where you're going to need 10 copper bars, hence why you need the smelter. And then yes, lots of obsidian to get both of these upgrades, and yes, cut rubies now. And then for level 10 you need 20 copper bars, 30 cut ruby, and again lots of obsidian slabs. And there you go, you finally unlocked the last levels of your village. Like I said, some of these resources may change slightly. If you're upgrading your village to max level in the grasslands, you might need a little bit more of the amber, and if you're doing it in the frostlands, it's probably going to need a lot more of the sapphires and maybe malachite. but you will need lots of the materials like copper bars and obsidian, as well as that bright core to go ahead and get your upgrades in the Frostlands as well. Upgrading your village in the desert is going to give you a lot of the castle builds, and obviously if you're in the Frostlands it gives you the Shogun pieces. I'm going to do a more detailed guide on unlocking every single village, so look out for that in the future. But hopefully this has now give you what you need to follow and do to succeed and get the most out of smelting and get the best tools and gear. If it has, do leave a like I said, go and check out the rest of my LEGO Fortnite guides, and I'll see you ratbags for more very soon.